welcome.
Welcome. What's up?
How are you, my friend? You've been in the plane.
How you doing?
Aaron, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a great time. Fantastic. Thank you very much to Louis and Geraldine for bringing LeWeb to London. It's wonderful. My name is Mike Butcher. I'm the European editor for TechCrunch. And we have here, sir, would you introduce yourself?
I'm Aaron from Box. How's everybody doing? Woo! Hello, London.
It's like you always wanted to say hello, London, didn't you?
I've been waiting about 27 years to do that, so
yeah.
this is great.
We kind of feel like I'm on a boy band with these mics.
No, I feel like I'm Adele, so this is good.
You guys are up there. Everybody's up here. So let's see what's going on with Box. Very interesting company. I was reading up about it. You have 11 million users. You have $162 million in funding. These kinds of numbers are off the charts, really. And you're said to be worth, the latest valuation is over $600 million. But I was very, very concerned to find that there are really not many photo filters on Box. Yeah. I mean, you know, where's the Instagram play here?
We're still working on what kind of Instagram mode we're going to add to the enterprise. So we haven't quite figured it out yet.
Pictures of the office.
Yeah, we're going to try and do some like Zynga stuff, hopefully for the enterprise as well. But we're just not there yet.
Maybe sort of Farmville for the office.
Yeah, like just like how do you grow some virtual money and stuff inside your business, that kind of thing.
Yeah, virtual money. I think you're probably very good at the moment. But quite seriously, I mean, you guys are really knocking it out of the park.
We do boring enterprise software, but we try and make it a little bit cooler than the normal stuff. So.
Absolutely. I mean, but you guys are very much going up against the likes of IBM and Microsoft, SharePoint, for instance.
Has anybody ever used SharePoint? Raise your hand. Okay, cool. Keep your hand up if you enjoyed the experience. Oh. Okay, that guy works for Microsoft, I guess.
There's one over there.
Okay. So what we try and do is we try and build simpler enterprise software that businesses and individuals can use very easily. It's super cost effective. You can sign up for Box for free online, and that's how it works.
But that's an interesting point because to me it feels like you're using the individual as a sort of Trojan horse into the enterprise. Would you agree?
Well, we don't call it a Trojan horse, but we absolutely. So what's changed so dramatically about the enterprise software world today is that individuals can come into their business and bring in their own technology to solve their problems. So instead of 5 or 10 or 20 years ago, where the only way you'd be able to solve a technology problem in your business is you build up lots of infrastructure inside your data center, now the actual individual who has the problem can go out and acquire their own solution to it. And that's actually why we're in Europe today, is because there's been enough of that demand and enough of that growth, and we've decided to kind of address the market in a lot more substantive kind of way. So we do think it's a pretty massive change in how technology gets adopted.
On that point, you announced this morning a big European move into London.
Yep.
What are the numbers looking like? I mean, what sort of growth are you seeing in Europe?
Yeah, so we today about 12 to 15% of our revenue already happens in Europe, and that's all sort of organic. So that means that people are coming to the website, finding out about Box on their own, and then bringing it into their business. And we'd like to go and double that over the next couple of years, and so make that more like 30% of our business, and hopefully in the process begin to expand out in a very significant way out here. So we're going to be opening up a London office, and that will kind of serve as our headquarters for Europe, and then we'll begin to expand out sequentially from there.
What sort of size of office are you talking about?
Just thousands.
Couple of salespeople.
Thousands of square feet, or I guess you call them meters or something here. Or?
Feet.
Okay, good.
I see. Well, that's pretty exciting stuff. One of the things there seems to be a big trend at the moment is the enterprise, and we saw that Microsoft is acquiring Yammer, for instance.
That seems to be the rumor, yes.
Well, yes, yes, and it looks pretty on the cards. Is that something that is of interest to you, that sort of acquisition part?
Like, should we have acquired it, you mean, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably should have, but they didn't call us, unfortunately, when that deal went down. But Yeah, I mean, so we do think that's a good way to kind of revitalize the SharePoint offering, the enterprise stack in Microsoft. I think what we're seeing, actually in the past 6 months or so, there's probably been about $10 billion worth of acquisitions in the enterprise software market. So Oracle has bought companies like RightNow and Taleo. SAP has bought SuccessFactors and Ariba. Microsoft is certainly rumored to be buying Yammer. And so there's just this massive amount of consolidation happening in the enterprise space because you're finally at a point where the traditional enterprise vendors cannot innovate on their own fast enough based on how quickly the market is changing. And so, so we think that there's going to be immense consolidation over the next couple of quarters and next couple of years where the traditional enterprise players have to buy their way into this market because of how disruptive it is. So we think it's very interesting, mostly because it really highlights the amount of demand, the amount of change that's happening, the amount of interest there is in this type of technology.
I mean, the pushback to that, to some extent, is that back in the day, nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM.
Right.
And that you believe the opposite is true now.
Yeah, well, we see lots of companies where you're absolutely at risk if your solution is just to let IBM solve all your problems. And we're at a point where the cost difference and the sort of the cost differential between going and doing a full-on implementation with an Accenture or a global system integrator for a major SAP project or Oracle project is vastly more expensive than moving to the cloud with a Workday or a NetSuite, or if you're looking at CRM solutions, going to Salesforce. So we're finally at a point in the market where you fundamentally have to be approaching technology very differently in the enterprise. And we're seeing the world's largest enterprises move to the cloud and start to solve some of these problems with cloud solutions. And that's obviously why Microsoft has to get in the space with companies like Yammer.
You originally based the idea behind Box on a research paper in 2004, some time ago.
That sounds very academic, yes.
And I was reading that you identified that the market for storage was incredibly fragmented. You rang up like several companies, and they all said, well, we're doing it this way, that way, etc.
Right.
2012.
Yes.
Things have changed.
Yes.
Is it really as fragmented now? Surely there's a lot of consolidation going on.
It's actually probably more fragmented than it's ever been. So so in 2005 when we started the company, I called up a bunch of companies and said, how do you share and manage your data? And it was fragmented, but mostly it was companies that were sort of not consuming any solution to solve this problem. So they were using FTP, or they would set up their own servers or their own hard drives. Today, the fragmentation is a little bit different. So what you have is a lot of consumers and individuals all use different services to go share their data and to manage their information. And this causes a huge problem for the enterprise, because now you have your data sort of among 5 or 10 or 20 different solutions, whether it's Google Drive or iCloud or SkyDrive or other solutions. And so it's sort of it's evolved to the point where it's just a new problem in the enterprise, where there are sort of consumers of these tools, but it's as fragmented as it's ever been, and that's why we're seeing this consolidation, because that creates an opportunity for some of the bigger players to come in and consolidate those technologies.
But you're not just about storage, obviously.
No.
I mean, you're a whole bunch of other things going on. One of the interesting things I saw that you are very much into fully fledged collaboration inside enterprises, but doesn't that not threaten many new startups, for instance, like Huddle, or is it some way you can work with those guys?
Yeah, so we think that there's tremendous growth for kind of all companies in the space, simply because we're probably all a fraction of where we could be from a total size standpoint. So I think over the next kind of 3, 5, 10 years, there's going to be sort of unlimited from the standpoint of it won't be a competitive issue in terms of growth issues. So we think there's massive opportunity for all types of companies. One thing that we're doing is exposing our platform. So we want to allow the next generation of enterprise software companies that deal with content and deal with information to be able to build on top of Box. We see that as a major competitive advantage relative to the traditional enterprise software market. So how do you build applications on top of the cloud that allow you to then leverage the tools that we've built and the APIs that we've built?
Become more of a platform.
Absolutely. And so that's our focus to the space, and that allows us to work with all types of solutions in the market. And we fundamentally think that what's so powerful about the cloud is that you have a lot more openness. You have a lot more ability to have best-of-breed solutions work together. So we work with Yammer, we work with Jive, we work with Salesforce, because now instead of buying all of your technology from one vendor that's going to slow you down and not drive innovation in your business, we can allow you to choose and mix and match the best-of-breed solutions and plug them all together, so you have sort of one effective suite to run your business, but it's represented by different products.
Salesforce is very famously a big proponent of cloud services as well. What's to stop them doing something in this space against you guys?
Well, there's certainly nothing to stop anybody from entering the space, and we're pretty used to it by now. There's Google Drive launched 2 months ago. We've anybody use Google Drive, by the way? What do you think? It's a go? Okay, right? Okay, good. Did it get your data into the cloud? Did it work? Okay, good. So we think that there's going to be lots of entrants over the next couple of years. It's a market that, because there's no sort of declared leader in the enterprise, it's going to drive more competition. Salesforce might be one of those, but ultimately we think we have a different enough offering and an open enough platform that we're going to stay pretty competitive in this space.
The interesting thing, going back and looking at where you guys came from, you were very much a garage startup, and famously.
That's a really. I love your accent because it makes garage sound really fancy. So
garage.
Yeah.
Startup.
No, it's good.
I should say garage. But you got apparently you got seed funds from your co-founder. Made $20,000 in online poker.
Yeah,
and use that as a seed funding.
My co-founder was really good at online poker, and so I mean, really good in relative terms. He only made $20,000, but we used that initially to fund the company, and then a couple months later, we were able to go and raise some, not necessarily real venture capital, but some angel investors. And
but you got Mark Cuban sent you a check.
Mark Cuban was also one of our early investors. So he's actually somebody who'll be coming up here later. Travis Kalanick from Uber also had Mark Cuban as an investor in his previous company. So Mark was definitely into a lot of interesting investing back in the day.
We need a tad more of that here in Europe. We need a couple more. We need to get Brent.
Well, you have like Richard
Brent, can
Branson?
You start writing more checks, please, Brent Hogan? But you went to some of the famous sort of early Silicon Valley kind of barbecues and meetups and things like that. So you've seen the sort of second bubble or the second wave of companies come through since the mid-2000s to now.
We're probably actually on our third wave technically.
True. So that's quite an interesting period of history. I mean, there's so many apps now, so many startups. I mean, what's some of your impressions? I mean, do you see the innovation cycle getting faster, more disruptive, or is it there's just a lot of crap out there, or what?
Well, I think you sort of, unfortunately, you'll get all of that as one when you have some of the economic environments that we've created, where there's a lot more investment, a lot more applications. It means that more applications can get funded. So you will have you'll certainly have more crap, but you'll also have more great applications. And what's interesting is I think the stat is there's like 500% more people on the internet today than there was 10 years ago. Some really, just incredibly large number like that. And so when you have a market expansion for everybody's total addressable market, and the fact that on day one, all of our companies can be global, it completely changes the sort of opportunity. I mean, you have Facebook with 1 billion users effectively. And so that creates tremendous opportunities for new applications to emerge. It means there's going to be more competition. It's going to mean there's more funding. And that will come along with then, unfortunately, more losers by an absolute volume standpoint. But it will also come with more winners from an absolute volume standpoint. And so if you're building interesting technology that solves real problems and that's actually innovative, then we think it's the best time ever to be a startup.
Many would say that, but many would also say, conversely, that we're reaching the end of the cycle. The Facebook IPO has been a bit of a bumpy ride. Obviously, the stock is up again on a week, but it's not been easy, obviously.
No.
And I mean, you guys are growing organically in Europe and choosing that path. Is that something? Do you feel that that's going to take you through this next cycle to when the IPO market opens up again, or do you feel that the things are still going well?
So we're still a ways away from an IPO, so we don't have to. We're not too sensitive to kind of near-term changes, from Facebook or other IPOs that are out there. Actually, I say in the next couple of weeks, Facebook could easily be back at its IPO price, and that would, I think, be a pretty an important point. And I think
did Mark tell you that?
Which Mark? Because there's a couple of them that all want the stock to rise. But
True.
I would say that. So back in the Valley, I think there was like a 3-day period where everybody was freaking out. And so like we had maybe a 3-day bubble burst. And then, in the past couple of weeks, it seems like things have rebounded back to normal. And now the Facebook stock, it was up 5% yesterday. If it does that, 2 or 3 more times, we'll be back at the IPO price. And I think, that'll all be water under the bridge, as they say here.
True enough. You're a close follower of and leader, in fact, of the Silicon Valley scene. I mean, but I'm sure you would have seen the Paul Graham Y Combinator memo recently.
I heard of the memo, yeah.
The sort of Cuban Missile Crisis of Silicon Valley. Do you think that the memo about early stage startups having to raise funding now or forget it? Do you think that's true? What's your opinion?
Well, I'm not. That's all dependent on what happens in the marketplace. There's a lot of factors that could occur, and so I wouldn't want to give anybody financial advice. So I would say it's generally always better to be well capitalized as a company. So if you have the opportunity to raise money, it's in your best interest to have that money in your bank, and it's certainly better to be in your bank account than anybody else's right now. And I would definitely take advantage of that opportunity without even sort of regardless of where the market's going.
I was reading that you are a big fan of creating a real company culture at Box, handing out Zoom tablets to your employees and putting on a band.
Well,
do you think that? What's your view about sort of creating a culture that works? Because obviously you're creating a completely different type of culture than some of your competitors like IBM, etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's certainly easy to create a different culture than IBM, just given the size difference and whatnot. I mean, they've been around, I don't know, 95, 100, I mean, actually literally 100 years. So they just had their 100th thing. So so we have the opportunity to address some new ways that you build a culture. We don't make you wear ties and suits to work, and unfortunately, there's alcohol in the office sometimes. So there's some differences between us and IBM. But culture is critically important. It's the only way to stay competitive. And in Silicon Valley, where it's so hyper competitive for talent, you fundamentally have to have your differentiation is what are you building? What are you trying to change in the world? And what is the culture? And do people like coming to work? And do they enjoy being in that kind of environment? And so you try and optimize on every single one of those dimensions. And so the companies that are long-lasting and are able to survive these, the different economic bubbles that occur are companies that are building sustainable cultures, sustainable value. And we're very focused on having a culture of openness and collaboration and speed and competitiveness.
I mean, do you feel that what you're doing is mapping to the real world very much? I mean, because the world of work is changing so massively. People taking multiple devices. There's the whole bring your own device movement now, BYOD or whatever the acronym is. I mean, how much more complex do you think it's going to become?
Yeah, so I think that the world of business is certainly getting more complex because of how interrelated and interconnected everything is becoming, and so that means that there's certainly more constituencies that you're always working with, that you're sharing with, that we're connected to. It means that an economic situation in Greece can affect a startup in Silicon Valley. That's pretty amazing, right? The fact that we have that level of sort of kind of flatness, as it were, of the world and connectedness. So technology will respond to that, where we'll have systems that basically map to how that world has changed. And we were talking to a major publishing company that's based in the UK, one of our biggest customers actually, and their world view now is they have sort of this digital supply chain that spans all different countries in which they work, and it spans all different types of people in and outside their business, freelancers and editors and clients and customers, and they need to be able to have a system to help them share and run their business that spans all throughout the globe and all different kinds of people. And so we need technology that's going to allow people to work like that, to be able to collaborate like that. That's why the Microsofts and the Oracles and IBMs of the world have a huge challenge, because their technology is far more focused on how do I help you and just the people inside your business and just the servers inside your data center, not actually how do I help you get to your data from any mobile device, any environment you want to be able to work in, any person that you want to be able to share with.
Well, finally, it's very interesting that fantastic that you're doing launching a London office.
We're incredibly excited.
And I also noticed that your full name is Aaron Levie Windsor.
Windsor Levie, yes.
Windsor Levie,
yes.
sorry. So, any Windsor, connection with the Windsors?
There's no relation to the important Windsors.
Any invites to the Buckingham Palace coming up?
I have not been invited anywhere, unfortunately, in my stay here. But I would say that, so I am actually a quarter English. So if you go back to my grandmother, so I can actually pull out like my Ali G accent here and there, and fit in among the
Get down with the kids in London.
I can hang out.
Okay. Well, Aaron Levie, great to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Thanks.
Cheers.